Welcome to the 48-Hour Rule, a UteNation podcast. The 48-Hour Rule is now in effect.
Welcome to the Players
Hey everybody,
Lounge.
welcome back to another edition of the 48-Hour Rule, a UteNation podcast. It's not a game week. We're going to have these coming to you guys as much as possible. With it being the off season now, still plenty of things going on, and especially, fellas, a huge domino that fell today. You know, one legacy is out the door. One of the greatest legacies, arguably the greatest legacy in Utah football history. So, plenty of things to talk about. As usual, I'm your host, Alex Markham. I got the typical guys with me this week again. Zack Moss, Derek Tuimauga. How you guys doing?
All good.
Doing great.
And Doc Holliday, Coach, welcome back, man. We appreciate every time you're on this with us.
Appreciate you all. I just want you to know today it was 77 degrees and sunny in Phoenix. So it's a great time to be a Ute in Phoenix, I can tell you that.
Hey, you got a spare room over there for a vacation for me?
Anytime. I can Airbnb one room. I got you.
Airbnb, I got you. There you go. Appreciate that. Oh, guys, man, what a crazy day, right? You know, it's one of those that we were all kind of going back and forth, and we know Whittingham was going back and forth too, right? We also know that there were certain things playing into it, okay? Certain things that'll eventually come out. But at the same time, too, it's time to talk about and celebrate a legend. You know, we can talk about kind of what we had heard with different things going on with this. Also, you know, congratulations to Morgan Scally, the, you know, upcoming new head coach of the University of Utah. Obviously, it hasn't been fully announced, but it's happening, right? We can talk about Morgan on another day. This episode is all about giving a man that there will be a statue built who is synonymous with the University of Utah and their rise to success, right? Somebody so beloved on the national scene, Kyle Whittingham. And I want to pull this up here. This is the note that the U posted today. Okay, and so give it a quick read here. You know, the time is right to step down from my position as the head football coach at the University of Utah. It's been an honor and a privilege to lead the program for the past 21 years, and I'm grateful for the relationships forged with all the players and assistant coaches that have worked so hard and proudly worn the drum and feather during our time here. The opportunity to guide so many talented young men as they pursued their goals, both on and off the field, has truly been a blessing. Thank you to the university, the Salt Lake community, and all of UteNation, and most of all, my wife and family, for your unwavering support that has helped make Utah football what it is today. Kyle Whittingham. Man, guys, it's tough. I don't know what to think about this. Now, the other thing to this, okay, is one very key phrase that was put in that. Okay, step down. Doc, I want to let you go first on some of this stuff. You know this man through and through, you know, even better than any of us on here, right? So when you hear those words, what goes through your mind and what could the future hold for the legend Kyle Whittingham?
I think one step down, not retirement, right? I mean, obviously, what has to concern you is if it's not a retirement, what is it? Why did it happen? We won't know until later. I think knowing Whit the way I know him, he still has a desire to compete. And the last conversation him and I had, he pretty much said, I want to have everything in place where I can win. You know, I hate losing. And I've always said, Whit, it may be the worst loser I've ever been a part around in my life. So if you have to really think about it, the person as driven as he is about competition, if it didn't go how he felt it should have went, I would probably say Witt's digging in, not giving in. And you just lit a fire, and we'll see where it goes from there as far as what he does with his future. I don't think he's done. I don't think, who knows? I mean, does he want another head coaching opportunity? Only Kyle Whittingham knows that. But I could easily see him. I mean, he's very close with Andy Reid. I could see him maybe venturing out that direction. Witt is very personable. He's a great interview. You could easily see him going into following Urban Meyer's footsteps because they're close and doing something like that. I think the thing that you always have to put in perspective is the person. And you're talking about a person that was there, 32 years. And my thing about Kyle Whittingham is he did it the right way. No NC2A allegations, 2 Rose Bowl appearances, 2 Pac-12 championships, 2 numerous Mountain West championships. He did it right. And I think in those times when you took a university into, at that time, a conference that featured USC, Oregon, UCLA, Washington, and you went there with a roster to compete. And in a short period of time, he turned the corner. And I think his discipline, his drive, and his want to is what makes him different. And let's be honest. I mean, Witt has 4 things in his life: his grandkids or kids also, don't want to rule him out, and his wife, which is, his family. Skiing, which you got to be somewhere to ski every day where it snows year round. Golf, which he's not a scratch golfer unless something's changed. I mean, he's pretty good, but
I've seen that man drive it long distance.
Yeah, he can drive it now. I mean, he can do all that, but golf is a game you got to play every day, all day to be great at it. And so what does he do best? Win football teams, guide young people. And so I just think reading that statement, he plans on being around this game in some shape, form, or fashion, and if that's being a head coach somewhere, if I'm University of Michigan, do I make that call? Of course I do, because he's run a program clean for 21 years. He's never had a scandal. He's taken chances on kids, fixed lives. Will everybody love him that played for him? Of course not. Everybody's not going to love me that played for me. That's a part of being a coach. If I got along with everybody, I probably wouldn't be any damn good at what I did. So that's a part of it. But I would make that call just to see, because you talk about a great coach to set up the future. If you can't get what you want, it's Kyle Whittingham. I think he set up some people, took care of some people in that program, and really led to Scally being a head coach at a Power 5 school or Power 4 school now. So you have to give that credit. And I mean, I watched an interview with Eric Weddle, who we know is an all-time Ute great, and the only coach in Division I that thought he could play was Kyle Whittingham. Yeah. And he had to tell Urban Meyer, this is the one player I want on this roster. And lo and behold, 14 years later, Eric Weddle's a Super Bowl champion. And so he has an eye for talent, I'm telling you. Is he old school? Sure he is. But just look at it. He went 10-2 this year. He adapted. He has adapted to every transition in football that you can ask. Whereas Nick Saban got out, didn't want to do it. Dabo Swinney is still fighting the fight, right? Doesn't want to take portal kids. Witt embraces it. At 66 years old, okay, great. This is what we're going to do. The one phase or phrase that I always remember when someone got hurt when things weren't going our way, now what? Now what? Say whatever you want to say, now what? Because we're still going to be us. And so I think there's a place in football for Kyle Whittingham. There's no doubt in my mind.
Derek, I want to get your take on it because, when it comes to me, Zach, and Doc, we all like going long-winded. You're a little bit more to the point than all three of us, right? So let's hear it, man.
Man, I just think, I mean, what Coach just said really rings true. When I heard the news from you guys, when you texted Alex and I was in meetings, and then, that broke, I was like, this smells so fishy. And, and no Coach Scally is amazing. He's going to do an amazing job. We can talk about that on a whole nother podcast all into next year. Utah football is in a great spot with him at the helm, as I've said many times. But, the man, Coach Whittingham, as Coach Holliday said, like, he's not one just to step away. He's never been that type of man, and I was just in disbelief. And so reading through, finally getting to see, his actual statement, it rang true that this man just is not done. And he does have more in the tank. One thing that Coach said that I really see with Coach Whittingham is that he's adaptable. He keeps his core mantra, his core values there, but he's able to adapt to the changing environment and mold it into what his core is. And I feel like that will take him, to whatever he chooses to do next on his journey. At the end of the day, just knowing the man, like I just don't see this as the end stop. And it will be interesting to see how things shake out. First thing that came to mind to me was, if I'm Michigan, I'm in a PR nightmare. I need somebody at the helm that is as straight as an arrow, that can get things back on track, that will set us up. That probably is a couple-year deal until we mold into someone else, and that's probably how they would approach it, I'm assuming. Why would I not go that direction? Why would I not look that direction with somebody that can help steer that PR nightmare back to where we need it to be as Michigan? So that's my initial take, and that's kind of my initial thoughts. I put out a little bit of just my experience with Coach Whittingham. We can jump into a little bit later, but that's initially what jumped out to me.
Absolutely. Now, you mentioned something I want to make clear to everybody, okay? You mentioned that it just seems a little fishy to you. The one thing I will tell everybody is that it doesn't matter if you're a legend or who you are, okay? When you are out in whatever fashion or another, okay, nothing is ever 100% kosher, right? There will be things behind the scenes that will never see the light of day in any situation, okay? I mean, it was the same way with Coach Mack. Everybody celebrated him, but everybody knew that one needed to be done. It is a little bit different this time where Kyle just won 10 games, okay? But at the same time, too, Zach, I apologize, man. We'll get to you in a second here. But, at the same time, too, we've been hearing since pretty much 2019 that Kyle has been close to retiring, right? And so there's certain little domino effects over the years that can kind of just lead to different things, right? So, again, you mentioned that. I wanted to at least, make note of that. But again, everybody's going to put their best foot forward. Everybody's going to say the right things because they should, because it's still a day to celebrate one of the greatest legends in Utah athletics history, in the state of Utah history, right? So, Zach, let's hear your thoughts on everything with how it went down and just your thoughts on everything today and just how it unfolded.
Yeah, well, while you guys were speaking, supposedly it's not official yet, but Kenny Dillingham, the Arizona State head coach, he's probably going to take the Michigan job. He's the that was like 30 minutes ago that came out, right? So Coach Witt to Michigan, probably not going to happen anymore, but never know, right?
But I think, I was trying to like gather thoughts here without being like, just off the top, right?
Right.
Because that can lead to different areas or whatever. But like when it broke, I was stunned. I don't think anybody who is a fan of the school and stuff like that wasn't stunned, right? If you're not in that inner circle of different, topics and information, right? So I was stunned. I was in the backyard smoking a cigar, and I'm like, whoa, like I'm like, whoa, wait a minute. I literally had to jump on Instagram and Twitter just to try to catch up, and I was 20 minutes behind. And like to Derek's point, like when I saw it, I felt a certain way in the sense of, yeah, this definitely felt fishy, right? Because I'm a believer in words, and I think words matter when you're speaking about something, and especially if you write it down, that means to me you definitely meant to say something the way you said it, right? So stepping down, right? Everybody, no one's stupid, right? Everybody knows when you're stepping down from something, that's a to some degree a mutual agreement, right? So to me, I didn't feel like he was done. Like Coach Witt's in his 60s, right? I think Saban didn't retire until he was like 72, right? And Coach Witt is a guy who works out every single day, right? Like the dude's in good shape to stand on the sideline and be a coach year in and year out. So there was no way, and like Coach Holliday said, like that competitive fire that's in him, like that doesn't just turn off after going 10-2, right? Um, so to me, it definitely felt a certain way, and it still feels that way. Coach Witt is, is no argument there, right? He's done, a crazy amount for the school in over his 20 years being there, as the face of the program and things like that. And, it's just a weird taste. It's not ever, I can't even like be like just super happy for him because it's not like it's like, it's not a retirement. It's I'm leaving the program, right? And, I've been in Coach Witt's office a few times this year, and nothing there made me feel like just having conversations with him, right? That it was going to be a wrap, right? Um, I think being at the last game in Rice Eccles this season, if I ever felt like that, I would have probably done a few things differently, right? You try to soak in that moment and things like that, but it just never felt like that to me. So,
Right.
I mean, like I said, um, I'm not going to be quick, right, to say the program is in great hands. I'm not. Like, I'm just not going to do that. Because you don't turn around from someone leading the program a certain place for 20 years, and then next year, this shit is just going to be just the same thing's going to be running, right? That just doesn't happen, right? And no matter who the coach is, no matter if you played there, no matter if you've been in waiting for years and you stood next to the dude and you held his pocket, right? You're just not going to be able to manufacture that same type of thing, especially in the first year, right? There's going to be some weird stuff that's going to happen. Obviously, they're losing players, things of that nature, and stuff like that. And you know, now instead of Coach Witt recruiting, right, it's going to be, and him being the face, it's going to be Scally, and that comes with a whole different types of players, right? Because now we're going to see what type of players he's going to bring in. We know the players Coach Witt has brought in, right? Uh, from leading the program for all that time, like that was a key thing of me coming there, right? It wasn't really, I didn't know Utah from the back of my hand. I didn't know shit about the state, right? Uh, all I knew was that they had a person who had been there for a long time, who was consistent, and then everything else I had to learn, right? Coach, I had to learn once I got there. But like from that standpoint of things, we talking about being 17, 18 years old, um, and guys moving across, the country and stuff like that. Like that was a key factor. So, you know, I won't, I think Coach Scally is going to be able to do a well job just from the sense of they're going to have the money, right? They got the private equity thing going on, right? And then the Big 12 is supposedly signing this other big deal right now as well for another $500 million. So from that aspect of things, right, and the program has been winning consistently. So you're going to have guys come in and be able to do things from that nature. And, NIL looks a lot brighter than what we thought it might look like a few months ago. So I have hope and things of that nature from that standpoint. Like I said, this is a weird feeling for me, knowing that, when you go to games next year, right, or just in the future, right, instead of seeing that same face, same consistent person on the sideline, right, like, that's a different feeling. And I don't know, I know sometimes, and Coach Holliday probably can easily speak to this, and Derek, but like when you're a player, sometimes it's weird when you're with your coach, right? You don't always have that type of connection, right? Because it's just that player coach thing. But it's like as soon as you leave, you walk away, you grow up and things like that. Like then that connection, you see all those different things that person was doing for you and teaching you, right? And all those different scenarios. So for myself, did I have a super great relationship with Coach Witt from the respect aspect? Absolutely, right? Like that dude walks in his respect, and it ain't really no difference there, right? But like it was hard to get like a real, and me being who I was at that point in time too, right? But like since I've left, like I've gained a whole different understanding and outlook of Coach Witt, and being able to come back this year and be at every single game, right? And it be so welcoming from the same one person, right? It being so welcoming, being able to. I was in Coach Witt's office more this year, than I probably ever was in 4 years, right? Like, and Coach Holliday knows if I went upstairs, I was probably going to one or two offices. Like that relationship has just grown so much, right? And he has the same phone number, right? The dude ain't changed his phone number since 2016 when I got recruited, 2015 when he was recruiting me, right? Like you can still pick up that phone, call that same dude, text that same dude, and don't have to worry about nothing. And he's going to get back to you, right? So it's going to be different. It's a transition. Yeah, Coach Scally is going to come into a position and things of that nature. And, right, we all going to hope that he does a great job in the first year. I think he'll do a good job in the long run, absolutely, right? Because he's going to have the back end and things like that. And he's a very good coach. But it's a weird feel for sure.
With this, obviously you mentioned the private equity stuff, right? It was funny because you and Derek can both speak to it. That's what we were planning on. We were going to be doing something this weekend, and we were going to be talking about that tonight. Like knowing that there was the outside shot of everything with Whittingham, but it's just wild. So the private equity thing is something we're going to be diving deep into in the next little bit. There's plenty of things to be able to talk about with that. I know all of us are excited about it. What I feel like is going to be interesting is, just how fast Harlan is going to realize, and others are going to realize that stuff can be used for NIL. You don't have to just stick to the rev share. And I don't know that that's been fully grasped yet, but the way they set up that business structure, they're more than capable of being able to do that. And it doesn't come back tied to the university, so there's a lot of things. And that's something right there that I know Whittingham has been wanting that extra money for that NIL, right? Again, all those little things that can go on behind the scenes that can lead to one thing or another. What's that going to look like now with Scally and so on and so forth? Again, there's so many different moving parts, even going forward, that are just going to be so unique to be able to sit back and understand and follow. I don't want us going too long on this episode tonight, right? Because I know everybody's emotions are still kind of even raw on this as well, and still trying to gather and process thoughts. And I'm sure some of us are running on fumes. I know I am, right? But we had to get on and do this. I want to hear from all three of you guys, what you're going to remember from Whittingham, the coach, the most, and maybe some of your fondest memories from him, or even some of the funniest memories from you guys as well. Doc, let's I know you're going to have stories for days, Doc, so let's hear it.
My funniest memory of Kyle Whittingham, this I will never forget. I will take this to my grave. It's snowing. I mean, when I say snowing, it's a damn near blizzard out there in Salt Lake. So I leave early. I leave my house 2 hours early. It took me like an hour and 45 minutes to get there. I got to the meeting 15 minutes before. And I think this was my first year. I'm almost sure it was. And so Freddie, first Sharif comes in, and he's about 8 minutes late. Freddie comes in, and he's 15 minutes late. And everybody was quiet. And he says, I got a news flash for you. It fucking snows in Salt Lake City. Your ass still needs to be on time. And I'm sitting there going, this is this man's brother. Oh, shit. And right there, you're like, okay, if it's a snowstorm outside, maybe I need to think about sleeping in the office at some point because the meeting is going to go on. And he was there on time. He beat me to the office. He was sitting in that meeting room. And I think his whole purpose for being there so early is to see who was going to stroll in late. And when it was Freddie, I didn't even know what to say. I was floored. In that whole meeting, I don't think anybody spoke. Everybody was just quiet, sitting back. And then walking out the hall, if you go out the hallway, Whit generally stays back in the meeting and he talks to one or two people, but you're walking down that hallway. I went in my office and closed the door and said, holy shit, what have I gotten myself into? That's that man's brother. Like, you gotta be kidding me. But that stuck with me every day, and I was never late. Never, right? Ever. I watched him because our offices were right across from each other. When he turned that corner, I didn't care what was going on. I just grabbed my stuff and went in. It was, but that was him. That was just, man, he was regimented. No excuses. And it didn't matter. If you were sick, I worked with this man, and I was so sick one week, I slept under my desk during the day, during lunch, because I was not leaving that building and taking a chance on going home. It's kind of like that thing. Fear is one thing, but Whit had a way of just imposing like fear. It was just something about him. When he got serious at practice, you could just see the team. Like, it was like, oh boy, it's going to be one of those days. He's on one today, and he started, what was it, Zach, the 2020s or whatever, where you go back and forth, you touch the line back and forth. And we didn't get off to a great start when Troy Taylor came in, and Troy was kind of like, oh, they've run enough at practice. That lasted until we started losing. And all of a sudden, 2020s came back, conditioning after practice. He went back to who he was. He was like, okay, enough of this soft crap. We're the toughest team in the league, and we're going to practice tough. I mean, that's him, man. I mean, that is him through and through. But I can tell you, if there was a player who was troubled, he didn't know how to always, he's not an approachable person. But once you got to know him and sit down with him, you could tell with anything. And he always had the right answer. And that, if you ask me, that's what I remember. He always had the right answer. And God knows, don't disturb a workout. That's all I'm telling you. You better have a really good problem if you disturb one of his workouts. And I think the second thing, and I'll stop here and let these guys go, he had a running total of how many days he had gone without missing a workout. And I think when I was there at one point, it was over a freaking year and a half. And I'm like, who works out 5 days a week for a year and a half? Like, and it was amazing. And that and the bike in the summer, Zach, when he brought the 10 speed around, and he'd probably run you over. You know, he was going so fast. He was in his own way. He was so much fun to be around if you embraced it. And I embraced it. I mean, he was always good to me. So I love the dude. I think everybody knows that. And he's my guy.
Derek, let's hear maybe one of your funniest memories of him, and just what you're gonna look back fondly of. Some of your fondest memories.
Yeah, for sure. I just echo everything Coach Holliday said. Like, he's one of those coaches, speaking of workouts, when he was working out, I was typically on what's the fat club? What do we call us? The ones that had to lose weight during the week. Cardio club. I was on cardio club a lot. And so I had many of miles next to Coach Witt when he was on that Stairmaster, and my fat ass was right next to him trying to burn off. And like, there was just moments where he'd look at me and he'd just start laughing. He's like, D, how much this week? I'm like, it's only 6 pounds, Coach. I'm going to get there today. And like, he just starts laughing at me. And like, to Coach Holliday's point, like Coach Whittingham, he was an acquired taste. Like, you had to accept it, and you had to embrace his mantra. Like, if you could embrace what he stood for, you would get along just fine with the man. And like, one thing that I'm super grateful is like the opportunity to embrace his mantra that, we won't become you, you'll become us, that next man up mentality. And that made all the difference in my college career and has served me beyond. And it was just a unique way that this man went about it that is hard to, I guess, quantify the impact of that. And to Zach's point, I think Zach puts up a very good point of what he talked about earlier. You just don't know how Coach Scally is gonna try and take that forward, because it's so unique, to Coach Holliday's point, to who Coach Whittingham is. Like, you can only be Coach Whittingham as Coach Whittingham. And so the whole culture will change, even if he was there since the very beginning with Coach Whittingham. And so, that was probably my fondest memories of Coach Whittingham was just how much a lot of people see him as the football coach, but he took so much time out of his life during the off months, during May, to come to my wedding reception, to come with his wife, to spend, I mentioned on my X post, he stayed like 3 hours on a Polynesian wedding reception, like talking to everyone, because everyone wants to talk to him there, and like just so gracious with his time. Like, this man only has such finite amount of time, and yet he chooses to use it to support his players even beyond the football field. When I went on my mission, the man was there in my living room eating pig, fish, and everything else with my grandpa. And, and having that burn into my memory of like just how special that is to see, like, him care that much about the elders of my family, to take time out of his day. Those are moments that, are just uniquely him, that I'll always be grateful. And why I always just make sure that I would always fight for that man however I could, because, if you show that's the reason why my mom fell in love with Utah football, is because the respect that and the attention that he gave to her and my family when he came to our home. And that was just uniquely Coach Whittingham. And so that's the things that I'll miss the most. It was easy to get behind a man like that because you knew that he cared about the right things and things that aligned very well with me in my life. So I'm forever grateful for those moments. And yeah, man, those are the things that stick out the most to me.
Yes. Zach, let's hear it.
I will say I do got some funny stories, but I'll end right there because that's some good ones.
No. We want to hear some more funny stories. Let's hear some more funny stories.
No, man, I can't, man. there's some funny ones. The one-liners I'll miss the most. Just the "Are you shitting me?" And like there was a player. I don't know if Zach, you guys ever had this, but I'll end on this one. Like there was a practice, and this guy that was recruited was hurt like his whole freshman year, so he was in the pit. And then we got the spring ball, and like it was his first like couple practices, and he was it was bad. It was really bad. And like Whit out of just stop practice in front of everyone just goes, "Who the hell recruited that guy?" And you just were like, "Oh my gosh, that is horrible." Needless to say, that kid was no longer part of the program in like a week, 2 weeks later. Man, it was just like, yeah, and it wasn't. I mean, you either gave everything you had, or if you were soft in Coach Whittingham's mind, he could sniff that out, and probably weren't going to last too long, you know. And so those are some funny moments to me.
You're gonna have to tell me off air who it was. Oh wow, Zach, what's some of the stuff from you, man?
Man, I don't even can recall great memory with those, but I think for me it was just winning. That was the main thing. Like I never really stopped and like took in all the moments and things of that nature, right? But like one thing I always just remember was like Coach Witt never really said a lot to me, right? Like he never said a lot to me. Like Coach Holliday would be on my ass, Coach Mack would be on my ass, right? And that would be a lot of times themselves, and then a lot of times at the same time coming from Coach Witt, right? But he never personally got on my ass. Like I can't even really recall, right? Now I do remember, I remember one time, I think it was senior year, maybe it was 28 junior year, but we were getting ready we were warming up. And then I was bullshitting on the warm up. Just kind of like getting through it because I'm like, all right, let's get to practice, man. But and I'm all the way at the end. Like Coach Witt usually stood on the turf field somewhere real close to the middle or back to the left as far as that way can go, right? So I never went that way, right? I never went that way on purpose, right? Like I usually was one of the last dudes coming out to practice and all that type of stuff. So I never made it that way. I was usually right there on that gate, probably the last 3-4 spots. And I'm like, well, you definitely can't see me. And it wasn't the first time that I've lollygagged through the warm-up. So I'm bullshitting the warm-up, and all I hear is a whistle, and he's like, all right, 2020s. I'm like, and then everybody was like just looking at me, and they just knew it was me. I didn't even hear what he said, right? But then I remember after practice, and that was like the one time I remember Coach Witt like actually, pointing me out and making me the front of something. Because when I got back in the locker room, all the damn polys jumped my ass. All the big dudes, linemen and D-linemen jumped my ass because I had them doing 2020s when practice hasn't even started. We just warming up. But that's my one funny story that I'll never forget. That was just like, that was the one time I remember Coach Witt literally was like, all right, I got to get his ass like this one time, like for sure. But for me, it's about the winning. Like that's what I always remember. Like Derek said, like when you have a really good leader, right? Like, and we're all men, so we not just following nothing, right? Like, and just like you said, when Coach Witt knew a player was soft, the same things with players, right? You know if your coach is soft, you know what you can get away with, you know you can play around certain things, and you ain't gonna play the same. You're not gonna do things the same when it's hard, right? And it's usually always hard when you're playing football. But Coach Witt, no matter what was going on, and like Coach Holliday said, like that mantra, that mentality, like now what? Like there was no excuses, right? Like I'm from Miami, so I already had a no excuse policy built in, right? And seeing someone like Coach Witt, right? Because my coach in high school, totally different coach from what I had to go to with Coach Witt. Like that shit was like, I was like, yo, like it got you ready for that next level with no questions asked. Like once you get to the next level, and that's another thing I'll give Coach Witt props on. It's like so many dudes that come from that program have been able to build careers and last for more than your 2-year average in the NFL, right? Just off the simple fact of how he ran the ship there and guys being prepared there, right? Because the way he ran that there, that was hard, right? And you had to shift quick or you wasn't going to make it. Like you were not going to make it and you were going to get left behind. Like Derek said, like, you're not, transforming into you, right? You're becoming us, right? And he didn't care how good you were, none of that type of stuff, right? Because what he believed in things of that nature, he knew how to find those players, right? It didn't matter about the 5-star, the 7-star, all this talent and flash. Like he didn't care about none of that. It was these things here. And if that player had it, right? Those were the people he wanted. And like that type of stuff got you ready for the league because then the league became quote unquote easy in your mind, right? For one, and being in the routine, doing the prep, doing the certain things that you got to do, being tough, being physical, right? Being smart. Like those are the things that was so important to him that got instilled to all of us. And like I love today, one thing I saw trying to catch up with everything happening was that you could see all the players that play for him, right? Like all the guys that I have on either Twitter or Instagram and stuff like that, like just seeing the outpour of long messages, right? Like just long messages of just showing how much this man has meant to them, has molded them, right? Not just on the football field. A lot of these dudes hasn't even played football in a while, right? Seeing different coaches, right? Names that we all know from different programs also speak highly of them on Twitter and things like that. Like you see just all the amount of respect that he really, really, really garnered and earned and things of that nature and deserved from so many people that he's touched, right? Like, one thing about me coming back to school was getting my degree because at first I didn't care about a degree. Like I didn't, right? Like Coach Witt was somebody and just the way things were ran there that made you want to get a degree. Like it made you want to get a degree. It made you want to compete over there, right? And because coming in, I was just like, all right, I'm just going to be 3 and done. Not worry about school, not thinking about that part of things and life after football, right? But that was something that he always preached and that he always stayed hard on and had all the coaches that were working with him also in our ears on that type of stuff. Like it wasn't going to be no slacking in that aspect and then think you're going to come over here and play football at a high level, right? It was going to do both at a high level. So, I mean, those are my memories with Coach Witt. And like I said, to me, it's still weird. It's going to be so different.
Yeah.
Not, being able to go to school and just see the same person over and over and over and over and over, which for me has almost been a decade of seeing that same person, right? So those are some of my memories for sure.
Yeah. And you're just saying that, you're still kind of excuse me, there goes my voice. You're still kind of processing it, right? And, one thing I definitely want to do over the next little bit, we got plenty of time to kill before the bowl game. Like I know I was talking to Kenneth Scott tonight. K. Scott wanted to be doing this. He's doing a little date night, right? So where we can get some other past players, I still want everybody being on here and, just kind of, having those conversations about it and everything, because it is crazy. It's such a shock that 21 years and 32 years even being a full coach, right? Not even just head coach. And now it's no longer, and there's a lot of good memories and, just a lot of good fun conversations to have. But I'm going to ask you guys one other thing before we before we call it a night on this. But before I do that, Zach, I want to ask you this and mention this to you and give you a compliment as well, right? Because everybody on this is is giving Coach Witt his flowers tonight, right? Remarkable career, remarkable coach, remarkable man. You know, when it comes down to it, what does it mean to you to be synonymous with a legend, a guy that, you know, again, he's one of the greatest sports figures in Utah sports history, the state of Utah history, right? He's going to be in the College Football Hall of Fame. He is such a respected man on the national scene, okay? Made such a big impact. And when it comes down to it, when everybody talks about that legend and that legacy, you are going to be one of just a small handful of players that are constantly talked about when it comes to the Whittingham era. What does something like that mean to you?
Well, I mean, I can't even really think about what it means to me right now, honestly, because that was never a thing that you were trying to do, right? I think, like I said, like for me, I didn't even know what Coach Witt had done, to be honest, like things that he had done in his past and things like that when I committed, right? Like I said, like for me, everything was about trying to go somewhere where I can go play right away and things of that nature. And I knew it was a run first school, right? That's what I do love about a Coach Witt team, that you can run that ball no matter what. um, so, but, you know, I think being able to, you know, be listed with so many players and things of that nature as well that have played for this dude, it all really goes back to the person who's leading you, right? Like it's that, right? Like for me, I've always said, especially for myself, like I can't speak for other type of people and people who've had success and things of that nature, right? Um, like I didn't play running back until my senior year in high school, like legitimately. Right? That was the only year where I didn't play anything else, right? Even my junior year in high school, I played 60% linebacker, 40% running back, right? And I was like the third dude to some degree there. So, you know, for me, being able to come somewhere where I was able to develop, right, to being where a guy who was going to let you, you know, be yourself at the same time too. And then the coaches I had, right, Coach McDonald and things of that nature, um, it was just a perfect storm. So like for me, being able to, you know, be in that list or whatever, it means a little bit more to myself because I didn't plan to be able to be doing something like that, right? Like I was a late bloomer. I always tell people I was a late bloomer. So when I was picking a school, I wasn't thinking about who's the coach in the sense of accolades and things like that. I just wanted to go somewhere where I know I wasn't have to transfer, right? Because a lot of the times when your coach leaves, the head coach leaves, they bring in a whole new regime. A lot of times you have to blow up the whole thing, and being able to grow as a man and things like that, and still be able to come back now because a lot of guys don't have the opportunity to go back to their programs and see the same people and feel like home, right? A lot of times people just have played somewhere and that's just they're just alumni, right? But every single dude, like I said, like even seeing it on Instagram, like every dude has a real personal relationship with Coach Witt, right? That they can recall on and look back in their lives and look at their lives now and be like, okay, this dude helped me here, right? He helped me here even when I was, you know, it's period 18 or something like that, and I hated this, but it helps me over here because I'm in period 18 of my life, right? And I can recall on something that I had to learn in football. And Coach Witt is a no nonsense type of guy. Like there's not going to be, you can't come to him and BS him. You just can't, right? So for me, I was already like that, but a lot of that helped as well, being able to be led by somebody when you're talking about your 18, 19, 20, learning life and trying to, you know, do something that a lot of these dudes have already done, right? That's the other part of things, right? Like, um, so being able to, you know, like you said, like mentioning into that with a lot of other people and stuff like that, it does mean something for sure. But it all goes back to the coaches, right? Like you players, we can't do a lot of the stuff that we do without the coaches, right? Like it don't matter. Like Coach Holliday pushing me in different areas, like that did help because when I got to the NFL, I could recall on that. Like I was like, shit, I got to practice today. Let's figure it out. Like if you needed extra pills that ain't gonna hurt something, that's gonna make you not hurt as much. All right, let's go because practice in NFL damn near is more important than the game because how you practice in the NFL is what you're gonna get in them games, right? Like if you ain't making that rep count in the NFL, you ain't gonna get that rep in the game. Like you're just not gonna get it. But in college, I could bullshit the rep and still get the rep in the game, right? So like that helped me a lot. And then being around the coaches, certain type of coaches, was big. So it all goes back to the leadership. Coach Witt had the right people. He's always had the right coaching staff. Like there's no players that I can think of that I played with that thinking back on that whole entire coaching staff that they'll be like, man, I didn't like this dude or X, Y, and Z, whatever. Every single one of those coaches, like I just said, even Coach Holliday for myself, wasn't even my position coach, but our rooms were right there, right? And you always would give me a nugget when you wanted to or when you could, right? And those are the type of people Coach Witt had around him because that tells you the type of person he is, right? He's not going to align himself. We don't align ourselves with people who we aren't like, right? So, it all goes back to Coach Witt at the end of the day, right? It's all him. Like he gave me a scholarship to come play. He put the right people in place for me to, have success and stuff like that, and to put myself on the list and mention my name with Coach Witt in a small token is, all the credit goes to him for sure.
I love that, man. Well put. Really well put. So, Doc, I want to get to you last on this, so I apologize. But, I know how you are with your passion and your words on everything and how much Coach Witt has meant to you, right? Just to close it out, I want all three of you to, maybe just take a brief moment and, kind of thank Coach Witt as if he's sitting on this podcast with us. In just your own special way for what he meant to you, because again, it's very apparent on this podcast just what he meant in so many different ways to all three of you guys. So Derek, you wanna go first on this, man?
Yeah, man. No, I think just in closing of what I said last, just super appreciative for just how he treated and respected our culture, respected my family. It's why I became a Utah man and why I still support and love the man today. And so I'm just grateful for that and just grateful for the lessons. Football didn't turn out the way I thought it would with injuries and everything. And that's life. And the lessons that I learned in Utah football transcended way beyond the football field. And I was able to take that into my life and into the successes that I have today. And I owe that so much to the foundation that was built off those lessons that Coach Witt taught and instilled into me. So that's truly what I'm grateful for.
Zach?
Yeah. Just gratefulness is the number one thing. I think, like I said, like opportunity to come play at a program with rich history, being only played running back for 1 year and still offering me a scholarship to come and play at his program that he's been there for at that point for so long at the same time. All I can say is just, being grateful and just giving gratitude to a dude who has shaped so many people's lives, myself including. Being able to come to a place that actually felt like home, right? Being able to come back to a place still that feels like home. Those 4 years, and a lot of people said college is going to be the best 4 years of your life. Now, it could be for different reasons for a lot of people, right? But for myself, like being able to be there, being around the type of people that players that were recruited and things of that nature, right? All that stuff still stems back to Coach Witt, right? Like the people in the building are still stemming back to Coach Witt. And those people helped me, mature overall as a person. And with doing that, also helped me become a better football player, to where I was able to go play in NFL and things of that nature. Where I don't know if I go anywhere else, are those things, possible, right? You have to question it just because the people around you every single day making a mark on you every single day, and all those people, all the coaches, things of that nature stem back to Coach Witt. So, like I said, just a lot of grace and gratitude for the scholarship, one, that he sent out to myself, and everything else, that the relationship I've been able to build with him since I've left, right, and stuff like that.
Doc, take us home, and then I'm going to have Zach close us out like always.
I think a couple things. First and foremost, as a coach, never coach with your hands in your pocket. I'll never forget that. And no matter how cold it was, we were going to practice outside. And that was just his mantra. I will never forget that. We had that indoor, and I kept looking over there like numerous times, like, okay, we can go in the indoor. And I just remembered one practice, and I don't know if Zach remembers this, but in the spring, it was so cold, and we were in a stadium, and we were going to practice, and I swear to you, I thought Dennis Erickson froze to death. It was so freaking cold, but that was his mantra, and the man never wore gloves. I never understood that. I think for me, and I'll end by saying this, I met Coach Whittingham at the National Coaches Convention in Nashville, Tennessee, and he was running. I will never forget it. He was out running the whole hotel. It's at the Gaylord Plaza. And the late Aaron Alford stopped him, and when he was done his run, he introduced me to him. And that day, I made up my mind that I was going to work for him at some point. And that was his mantra. He commanded respect. I love the fact that I learned so much from him, and things I know Zach talked about what was on his X or Twitter post or whatever. But I sent him a long message about a week ago and just thanking him for everything he did. And most people say, how can you thank somebody? You were relieved of your duties at some point, and people who don't know the whole story. And that was a tearful moment for me, because I love working for him. And it was, but the standard is the standard. That I will carry with me my whole life. We don't become you, you will become us. And I remember that, and the whole next man up, now what? Those are things that if you bought into it and listened to it, it will carry you through your whole life. And Whit had a way, when he walked into the room, he commanded respect when he stood in front of the team. Commanded respect. Didn't have to say a word. You just instantly looked up, and routine was everything to him. The same sheet these guys will know what I'm talking about. Every Monday went up on that board about goals. Did we reach this goal? And then it was always the standings in the conference. And you just always felt like when you got on a plane or you went to the Marriott up on campus, you had a chance to win. And the only players that I ever felt sorry for during the game were the kicker, the punter, and the deep snapper. Oh my God. He didn't give anybody else hell. He never really said anything. He was encouraging to anybody else. But I felt so bad one game for his son, Alex Whittingham. A couple snaps, they went. I was like, oh my God, this kid may get killed before he gets home. Like, those three people on that team, he took it personal because those were his guys that he coached. And it was almost like you felt like when you watched him, you just knew I had to get my ass in order and my guys better perform. And that's who he was. Toughness. And if you know, we live in a society now where you can get away with anything for the most part, and you just apologize, or if you're a kid, you put in the corner. Whit was all about discipline now, discipline, and he demanded that from his coaches, he demanded that from his office staff, and he demanded that from his players. And all in, you're either all in or you're in the way, and you bought into it, but it was just his persona. And that day, I said, God, I want to coach for this guy. Like, this is a guy I want to coach for. So everybody, I've heard all the stories about why I left BYU. Some people say, oh, he was fired. That was not true. Kalani asked me to stay. I had already known Ty Detmer, but it was all about Whit. It didn't matter the salary. I wanted to work for him because I thought he was a legend and the way he carried himself. He didn't have to holler. He didn't have to scream. He didn't have to raise his voice. It was always like 4 or 5 words, and it's like, wow, okay. But I think all these guys can testify when he stood up in front of the meeting room, there's not one sound. There's not anyone sleeping. All eyes were on him. And that's who he was as a person. You know, all eyes on me. And he loved life, and he lived life. You know, whether he was in Hawaii and he probably was out there swimming with sharks, knowing Whit. If everybody else was telling people not to go in the water, Whit was going to take his ass in the water. If he was swimming 75 miles an hour down a black diamond mountain, that's Whit. If it's playing golf for 28 holes or 20 or 36 holes until he can win, that's Whit. You know, he was going to be good at everything he did, and his teams were going to be good down to the smallest detail. And you'd be coaching your ass off, and Whit walk by, and you start coaching harder instantly. And guess what? When the players looked up, they start practicing harder. You know, that's who he was, and as a coach. And so I think in summing it up, and I love what Zack said, it's leadership, it's the man, but what held you accountable? And you felt, I can't let him down. You may have hated him at the moment. There's many players. I love what Zack and Derek say, you know, at that moment, you may not understand it, but you embraced it. The last thing I'll leave you with that I always loved that he would put up on the board, we're 1/3 Polynesian, we're 1/3 Black, we're 1/3 white. And you kind of dismissed that, but when you looked at the team, it was that. You know, it was that. And he didn't hold back. And I think a lot of times, and I know DT is LDS, but a lot of times you can feel like that's an exclusive deal, not with Whit. Not with Whit. You never felt like he was pushing any of his values on you. The only thing he ever cared about, just do the right thing. I don't care how, just do the right thing, you know, and I will always respect that about him because I've coached down the way and I've been in the culture, and sometimes you can feel like you're an outsider in that environment, but not Whit. Nope. It was all inclusive. So that I will always respect about him. And I hope that tradition continues. because that is what makes Utah different from any university that has not a majority, but let's just say a strong population of LDS students, professors, football. That's where Wiz is different. You never felt like an outsider with him. You felt like you belonged. And that's what I remember about him.
Thank you guys so much for sharing all this stuff. This has been a fun episode, guys. I mean, last time all four of us were on, we were just laughing our asses off, right? Some laughs today, still kind of bittersweet, right? It's not a fun day, but it's a day we all knew was coming. We just didn't fully know when. It's almost like we've been preparing ourselves for a few years on this now, and it's still crazy to sit back and say, oh my God, this happened, So I know we're still going to have plenty more thoughts going forward. Same time too, just a legend is stepping down today. Still nobody fully knows what to think of it, right? It's going to take some processing. But the thing that can't go understated is what he's meant to this university, what he did for this university, and the lasting effects that he's still going to have from what he has put in place going forward. Morgan Scally is in a great position. He's very fortunate to be taking over a program that is such a well-oiled machine. And I know everybody's looking forward to seeing where it can be taken from here. And if it can take that next step, same time too, it's not fun when you see a legend step down. So I'll leave it at that. Zach, close us out, man, and everybody be on their way.
Yeah. Definitely, we all appreciate Coach Witt and his time and all the things that he gave to everybody. But we appreciate everybody else giving us their time and ears as well on this. So make sure you guys continue to like, subscribe, and hit that button for us and tell your friends on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcast from, man. You're not going to want to miss the rest of this information and news and topics that we're going to be talking about all off season. So, as always, go Utes.
What's up, you guys? This is Ute fan Ivan. Alex asked me to edit this podcast for you guys, and he also asked me to leave a thank you for Coach Whittingham at the end of the video. So this is what I wanted to say to Coach Whittingham. Thank you for everything that you've given Utah football and UteNation. You've built a program defined by toughness, consistency, pride, and being a Utah fan under your leadership has meant believing in our team every single Saturday, no matter who that they were playing. And you've gone far beyond wins and losses. You've created something Ute fans everywhere will always be proud of. Thank you for staying, for leading, and for representing Utah the right way. Thank you for everything.
Welcome to the players' lab. Yeah. When all the moment, man, it can't compare due to the obvious.